Hey guys, welcome back to my channel. What do I usually say? Let's see. I'm thrown off by you being in here. Don't laugh at me.
Sorry.
That's okay. It's hard.
Or do I say my name?
Okay. Am I boring you?
Sorry, no. My favorites.
Say that one more time. You can wave while I say hi if you want. You had a little something on. Hey guys, welcome back to my channel. If you're new here, I'm Toni, and I'm a homeschooling mom to 4 kids, and this is one of them. This is my oldest, Sienna.
Hi.
She is joining me today for this new special thing we're gonna do, which is what we read this month. Now I know a lot of people do this, but I've never done this before, and so I think this will be fun. Okay, so we both challenged ourselves to read a certain amount of books each month, and then we're gonna come talk about it with you guys and share. Now the cool thing about this is the books that we're gonna share with you guys are Christian books, or at least clean. Neither of us read books that are gonna be questionable. If I start a book that is questionable, I stop it, even as an adult. She's the same way. So we thought this would be a fun thing to share with you guys. If you are a mom of little kids or of teens or whatever, or if you're a teenager and you're looking for books, we both like the same genre, so a lot of these might be in the same kind of category. But we're gonna be sharing these with you guys so that you have some things that you can write on your list that you can read for the next month or whenever you need to read. So if you guys wanna hear what both of us read in January, then stay tuned. Okay, so I will share what my goal was for the month of January, and then she's gonna share hers. So I have not been reading a ton lately, so I didn't want to make too crazy of a goal, but I set 4 books for the month of January. And I'm including audiobooks too, because a lot of times as a busy mom, I do audiobooks if I'm cleaning our in, if I'm doing the dishes. Audiobooks work really well, especially if you're a busy mom, so that still counts. So my goal was 4 books, and I start to finish read 2 books. So not too bad. So if you missed my video that was a couple months ago about the power of incentives for kids, I will leave that above, but I had come up with this reading challenge for my kids, so that was how she set her goal. So it's just a card where if you fill up the card with reading all these books, then I am going to take them either to, I told him originally I was going to let him pick a book from thriftbooks.com, but then we went into a Barnes & Noble, and that was like the most amazing thing, right? And so she was in love with that. So I also was like, hey, if you finish your card and you want to go to Barnes & Noble, we'll go in there and you can pick out a book. So how many was on the card that you were trying to finish?
8. There's 8 on the card.
Okay, so there were 8 on the card, but this month in January, how many books did you read?
4.
Okay, so she read 4, and she's just been plowing through the books. Like I said, I only read 2 books this month. One I actually listened to on audiobook. The first one that I read is called Eyes of Elisha by Brandon Collins. I love Brandon Collins. We've both read books from Brandon Collins before, and this was really good. This was a very suspenseful and unique. It was a different kind of book than I've read before, and I would say when I first started it, I was like, I don't know about this, because I haven't read a whole lot of books that are like spiritual warfare kind of things like that, which wasn't exactly what this is, but it was a little bit out of what I normally read, but I decided to stick with it. It was so good. I really liked this. So it starts with this girl named Chelsea, and she has this vision, and she had a few different visions that she believes is coming from God, and they warn her about something that's going to happen. So one time it was like a car accident, and she was warned about it. It was a friend of hers that was going to get into a car accident, and so she warned the friend, and then it ended up happening that day, but she had just missed it, and like she saved her friend. And there was another time where I don't remember what the situation was, but there was something where she had this vision from God, and she was able to stop this thing from happening because she shared the vision with somebody. But you know, most people would think like, oh, she's crazy, you know. So she didn't tell a lot of people about this. Her husband had known about it, and she's a believer. One cool thing is a lot of these books, this one and then the next one that I'm going to share about, are very obviously Christian. Like, they talk about their faith. This isn't just like a clean book. This is actually like a Christian fiction. She talks about her faith. She's a very strong believer in God. There's someone in the book that, at least one person that gets saved in the book. And then there's always people who don't believe. So anyway, she is a believer and her husband is not. And so her husband struggles with her having these visions and doesn't understand it. And her and her husband are going out to dinner with this guy that's interviewing as the vice president of their company. So this is very important to her husband, who, remember, is not a believer. And so, not a Christian, you know. So at the table, her husband like goes to the bathroom, and at the table she has this vision about a murder that happens. And she believes, she gets this feeling that it's the guy who's sitting across from her, which is the guy that her husband is interviewing. So obviously, once she tells her husband about this later, this causes conflict between them because he thinks, you know, what is wrong with her? There's no, you're not getting visions from God, and he doesn't want to go to church anymore. It's really like intense and interesting. So anyway, she goes, and like most characters in the story, if you're reading mysteries, she goes into the woods to go see if she can find the body, and it's very intense. And so anyway, the whole story follows this woman trying to prove that this guy is the one that murdered this girl. One thing I will tell you that I thought was really cool about this book was I'm one that I love mysteries. It's my favorite genre. And reading a book, or I watch Dateline, and I watch 48 Hours and 2020, stuff like that, I almost always can solve it before the end. Like, almost always. She said, like, we were watching a Hallmark mystery last night, and I was like, well, I know who it is. And she was like, really? And she was surprised that I had figured it out. So that is a gift of mine, but it is annoying sometimes because a lot of times I can figure it out early on, and then, because I always think it's not going to be the most predictable person, it's going to be somebody that maybe you didn't guess. So this did not happen in this story. So this was where you're like, oh, well, that's who it is. There were 2 times, at least in the story, where I'm listening to it as an audiobook and it's almost done. The book was, I was like, okay, it's got to be over now. You know, I didn't know what chapter I was on because I was listening to it. And then this big twist happens, and I was like, how in the world did that happen? And then I'm listening to it again. I'm thinking, okay, it's got to be almost over now. Now they've solved it. And then another big twist happens. And there's not very many books that do that. And so I thought that was really cool. And this actually had a part where it follows the trial. And I haven't really read any. Usually once they catch the bad guy, you know, the book's over. So this was really cool that it followed like that law and order part of it, where you, not just the police part and the investigation, but it also followed the trial aspect of it. So anyway, it had lots of twists and turns. It was very, very good. One thing that was interesting was this book, especially compared to the other one that I read. This was written in 2001, which I'm trying to think back at what life was like in 2001. But like, it talks about, they don't have cell phones in this book. So that was interesting. And I thought, oh, this is like so weird that they're like, oh, the landline or the phone, you know, I got to go get the phone, or, you know, someone's chasing after you or whatever, and you don't have a cell phone because they didn't have cell phones there. Or the car phone, I think somebody had a car phone, you know, in it. So that was interesting. But that, even though that like told you that it was an older book, it was really good. So I think I would give this 5 stars. It was like on the edge of your seat, and I didn't want to put it down, and it was really good. So I love this. So Sienna is going to talk about her first book that she read this month.
Okay, so the first book that I read this month was Counted with the Stars by
Connellan Cosette.
Cosette?
Cosette. I don't know what it is.
So this is a biblical fiction, which is not a kind of genre that I usually read. Usually I read like mysteries. It's about this girl who lives with her mom and in Egypt, and she just has like a normal life. She works and goes and gets water from the wells and stuff like that. And this is a biblical fiction, and it's a retelling of the biblical story, the 10 plagues. So one night she goes to bed, and when they wake up, the water turns to blood, which was the first plague. And she doesn't really think anything about it. I mean, she thought it was weird, but she just got new water and stuff like that, and tried to figure out like if it happened to all the water and stuff. Then one morning she wakes up, and there's like frogs all over her bed. Ugh. And like all in her house and in the food and everything. And so then she starts trying to figure out like what's actually happening. And it's an inspirational book. So she's a Christian. So she talks a lot about praying and God and stuff like that. And so she just starts trying to figure out what's going on, and all the plagues are hitting and stuff. And she's trying to figure out if her and her mom need to like go somewhere else. And so it was a really good story. I really liked it. The ending was pretty cool. And even though it's a genre that I wouldn't usually read, I give it 5 stars. It was really good.
Cool.
Yeah.
That's awesome. So now I really want to read it. So Counting with the Stars Out of Egypt. 5 stars. Awesome. 2 books that are 5 stars. Woohoo. Okay. My second book that I read, I have been wanting to read this since I heard about it. I am a major Terry Blackstock fan. If you have not read Terry Blackstock books, they're awesome. Like her If I Run series is probably my favorite series of all time. It's like edge of your seat. I've read so many of her books. Finally got it. So this is Aftermath by Terry Blackstock. Super excited, okay? It started off really, really good. It was interesting. It was very different from her normal like murder mysteries. Normally hers are pretty much murder mysteries. But this one was different. Now, one cool thing about it was it showed you the perspective from 3 different people. And sometimes I don't like that because it can be hard to follow. Like I've read books before where like each chapter is a different person and then you're like, wait, who was that? And you're trying to figure out who was who. This was not hard because it was only 3 different people. And so one is this young girl that she's like, you know, her shirt is perfect. She probably would have worn this to this concert she went to, taking selfies. And so they're these young, I think they're probably in college. So her and her 2 friends went to this concert, and that's where it starts. And so they're taking selfies the whole time. It's very relevant. It's very like right now, which was funny compared to the other book that I read that they didn't even have cell phones. And then this one where they talk about Snapchat. And so her and her friends go and they're listening to this band. All of a sudden, she's taking selfies and there's this big explosion. And she doesn't know what happens and everything's going crazy. And so she gets out, and it actually tells you on the back of the book. So I'm going to tell you this, even though it sounds like a spoiler, it says only one makes it out alive. So they've three friends that go into this concert and only one makes it out alive. And even though I read that on the back of the book, as I was reading this first bit, I was like, oh, please let her friends make it. You know, you're hoping, even though it told me on the back of the book, you're hoping they're going to make it out alive. Well, they don't, obviously. That's why it told me on the back of the book. But so she loses both of her friends in this explosion. So then it switches to this other character named Dustin, and the police stop him out of nowhere, and they ask if they can search his trunk, and he's like, that's fine. I don't have anything to hide. And then, of course, they find the explosives in there. So he is linked to this explosion. He's like, he didn't have anything to do with it. Then the third character comes into play, and it's his old high school. They don't let you know if it was like a high school sweetheart or if it's just they're really good friends, but you could tell they kind of had this love interest that never came to anything, named Jamie, and she is an attorney. He calls her from jail. They haven't talked in years. And so they connect. And so you're following this whole story where Jamie is trying to help Dustin prove that he didn't do this, that he had nothing to do with it, and that he was set up. And then this girl, Taylor, who was the one that survived this concert, and it was like a presidential rally. So it was a big deal. There were a lot of people there. Anyway, a lot of people died. And so you follow her also, where she's struggling, you know, with all this stuff from losing her friends. So it's a really good story. It's very interesting. I solved the mystery pretty early on. So it's kind of, it was like, to me, kind of obvious. Now, I don't think it's obvious. To people who don't watch Dateline all the time or necessarily like read every single mystery book that they can get their hands on, you probably wouldn't have guessed him. But because I know to guess the person who's not the most obvious, I kind of guessed right off the bat. But it was still a really good story. To me, it was predictable, but that's probably just because I'm, you know, a sleuth. One day I'll work for Dateline when all my kids are grown. And I wanted to keep reading and listening. It was definitely, I'm glad I read it. I think the hype, it did live up to the hype. I think I was more like waiting for this a major, you know, like, oh, that's what happened, but it wasn't really like that. So anyway, I thought it was good though. It was a very good book. Okay, so what is your next book?
This is Mark of the Raven by Morgan L. Bousset.
Sounds good. We don't know the last name. Bousset.
And this book was really good. It's a fantasy, a young adult inspirational fantasy. So I was like, I think I'll really like that. And I think I just had too high of expectations for it. It wasn't really what I expected. It's about this girl, Celine, is her name, and she lives in the house of Ravenwood. It goes through their family that they can dream walk when they're a certain age, so all the girls in their family can get this gift at a certain age. And so she finally is at that age, and her older sister, her grandma, and her mom all already have this gift, and so she's like basically training to go on her first dream walking mission, I guess. So she finally goes into this one person's dream. It was more of like a scary dream.
That's what I was surprised about. It was like,
yeah,
the whole point of going in their dreams was to scare them or hurt them, right?
Well, yes. And she then finds out that dreamwalkers in their family actually like can kill people in their dreams. And so that part I just was like, I didn't really think that needed to be in the book. I just thought it would be more of like a happy adventure fantasy kind of. And by the cover you can kind of tell like about what she's wearing. But so
it was like a dark fantasy, like a little bit darker because there was murder in it that you weren't necessarily expecting. Yeah.
And so she keeps going in these people's dreams, and she ends up killing someone. I won't tell who because that would be a spoiler, but she ends up killing someone that she does know in their dreams. And she doesn't want to kill in her dreams.
Does she actually kill the person where they die, or they just die in the dream?
They die in the dream, but then also in real life, I guess.
Okay.
So, but it kept going through a bunch of these different people's dreams. So this is a trilogy, but they left me on a cliffhanger, and I don't like cliffhangers.
Where you have to read the next book. Yeah.
And since this wasn't my favorite book, I don't really know if I want to read the next book, but that means I don't get to find out like what the book is about, really. So,
or like you don't get any closure because it didn't finish.
So that's kind of annoying.
Okay.
Otherwise, it was a pretty good book. Like, I liked it. It was a good book. And I would rate it probably a 3 out of 5 or 3.5 out of 5.
Okay, so she is going to share her third book that she read.
So this book is called Fatal Frost by Nancy Mell. And Nancy Mell is one of my favorite authors. She writes romantic suspense, but they're inspirational, so they're clean and stuff. This is a trilogy, and it's called the Defenders of Justice trilogy. This is book 1. So yeah, she's a U.S. Marshal, and so her and her like detective friends are trying to work on this case, but her father comes to town unexpectedly, and she finds out that he's, I guess, been like hiding something, and it's something that these criminals have been like going after. And so he gives it to her, and she's trying to hide it this whole time, while the criminals, I don't think they know that she has it yet, but they know that her dad have it. So her detective friend knows that she's in danger, so they hide it. She's trying to hide this like memory chip thing that has something important on it. And so her and her detective go somewhere safe that she thinks the criminals won't find them. But once they get somewhere safe, they start investigating the land and all that stuff. And one of their friends that's with them, which is her ex-boyfriend, which also went with them. I should have said that before. He gets basically kidnapped by the criminals, but then one of the criminals stays behind and almost shoots her detective friend, and so she is kind of frantic, and they have been following her the whole time to their safe place. So now she's trying to figure out how to save her friends and keep the chip memory card thing safe, but not get killed, because they know that she has the card now, so she's trying to stay safe too. And so this book was really good, and I'm definitely going to read the trilogy. I didn't like, so I'm the opposite of my mom. She can like solve the mystery pretty early in the mystery. Usually I have like a guess of who the suspect is, bad guy or whatever.
Yeah.
But usually I don't get it right.
Oh.
But this one was kind of obvious towards the end. I was figuring out where he was, and they were figuring it out, and it was just kind of, I wish the ending was more suspenseful, I guess. But it was really good, and I'll definitely read the second and third book.
Okay.
So
what do you rate this?
5 out of 5.
Okay. Yeah, you kept telling me that this was amazing.
Yeah,
and you
it
loved
was
it so
really
much.
good.
Okay. Maybe you just became like me and started solving the mystery.
Yeah.
Okay, so Sienna's last book, her fourth book that she read for the month, and this is a series, or like, it's not a series, it's like a kind of book. We call them what?
I call them tiny blue books because
So you can show them the
'cause
spine. Have you guys ever seen
tiny
these,
blue books.
like at your library or anywhere? Like our library has a ton of them.
And they're all by different authors. They all like write the same kind of, I guess, genre. Yeah, it's love-inspired suspense, but they also have love-inspired like historical and love-inspired just books. But I like the suspense ones better. They're really good.
And she reads these so fast. Like,
yeah.
She picked this up and read it in one afternoon. And it's not like, I mean, it's
not too big.
Tiny, but it's not, I couldn't read it in one afternoon.
But this one is called Abducted by Dana
Metnick?
Mentink.
Dana Mentink? Mentink.
Okay.
Sure.
Yeah. And this one is about this girl who is a nurse, and she's working in this ER when her high school sweetheart comes in and is like hurt badly because of something that happened. And so she helps him, but she doesn't really believe that it's him. But when she gets like closer with him and finds out more, she finds out his name and stuff like that, then she remembers him and knows that it's her actual high school sweetheart from many years ago. And so she doesn't know why he's like in her town or in her hospital, basically. Then they both get abducted.
Both of them.
And they don't just go like the normal, I guess, abducted.
The normal abducted. What's the normal abducted?
Well, like, they don't go to like some like shelter or hidden in a basement or something like that. She, I think, falls asleep. Jet. His name is Jet.
Oh.
And it's Sarah and Jet. Just like talking about life and stuff when they both get abducted. And they both
At the hospital, or they're somewhere else?
They're,
like, do they go out for coffee or something?
I think they were like after her work day or something, when he's finally like off of bed rest and stuff. They both get abducted, and they both fall asleep and get put somewhere. She doesn't really remember how she got there. They get on a boat, and this bad guy takes them to a remote island and locks them in this little, I guess, like shed. And so they both wake up and find out that they're not in the town where they were. They find this guy who they know that now he abducted them. He gives them food, and they have a shelter with all the stuff that they'll need, but they're trying to figure out how to escape without him knowing that they're trying to escape, because they think that he's still on the island watching them, but they don't for sure know that because there's no like windows or anything like that. And they finally get out, but they are at the top of the cliff when they when he tells them why he abducted them and stuff like that. He's not working alone. There's someone else that he's been working with who has been watching them. I really liked it because at the end it was like, if you've ever watched one of the Hallmark murder mysteries, it's like at the end always
like
the detectives
recount what happened or something?
They always like tell them why they did something. And it reminded me of a Hallmark murder mystery, which was really cool. I really liked it. Like, they told the whole story, like, you did this to me because of this and stuff.
Oh, that's nice. You don't always get the whole story.
Yeah, and then you're like, wait, what?
Yeah.
And since this is love inspired, there's always some sort of love twist in it, and I really liked that part in this book. So all throughout this,
but the love isn't. It's not like it's never anything
big.
more than
it's
for a teen. In case you're a mom and you're like, oh, it's a love inspired. Like it doesn't ever have anything more than just like a kiss or something, right? Yeah.
No.
Okay, just so you guys know.
Just like a couple people
Like,
falling in
he's
love.
so handsome and dreamy.
Yes. And so I loved this book. I read it in like an hour and a half
It was
or something
so quick.
like that.
Yeah, she's a speed reader.
And it was so good. I just wanted to keep reading it. And I would rate this one 5 out of 5.
Oh.
It was definitely one of my favorites.
Okay.
Because I've read a lot of Tiny Blue Book authors, but I've never read this author before.
Yeah.
And I'm not going to say her name because I can't pronounce it. But I
she's
really
now
like
one
her.
of your favorites.
Yeah, so
Awesome.
I'll be looking for more of her books.
Yay, okay. Yeah. If you like this kind of video where you get ideas for books, and if you like hearing from this little angel here and me, please like this video because that'll tell us to make sure we keep doing this every single month. If you're not subscribed to my channel yet, make sure you subscribe and you click that notification bell so you're notified every time one of my videos comes out because I always am doing something either homeschool related or thrifty or mom life, and we're going to be throwing in this reading aspect too. So we will do our best to be doing this every month. She is definitely challenging me because it was, with a busy schedule, 2 books felt like a lot, and then she's just like pew, 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 flying through books. So it's definitely a good challenge. Any parting words? Was this fun?
Yeah, it was really fun.
fun.
It was definitely a good reading month.
Good.
Yeah.
Good. Awesome. Okay. Well, thank you guys so much for watching. We hope you guys enjoyed this, and we will see you next time. Bye.
This one is called Abducted by Dana.
Try again. This is called.
So this one is called Abducted by Dana.
Dana.
Try to get it right.
Let's try that again. Ready?
Mysteries or suspense like she does. Or she does. That kind of sounded weird.
She does?
Yeah.
Like Cheetos?
No.
Like she does. That's not weird.
It sounded weird.
Okay. Yeah, I'm not very good at this. I don't know what I'm supposed to...